Hello, sorry I'm late.
Okay, Claire's fixing some audio issues.
I was just finishing an HR related meeting and Pima was our topic, and that takes a real long time to talk about, you know.
I just spoke with Eric. He is having some difficulties with Microsoft. So I guess we can go ahead and start and he will jump on when he can.
Okay. Great. Well, I will call this meeting of the Financial Subcommittee to the RWRAC to order. And Claire, you've got audio. We're good with audio for Claire? Open.
Testing for Claire.
I think she may be still. Should we?
I'll write in the chat.
I just sent her. I just sent a message.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I can go forward with the virtual meeting reminders while we wait for her audio, I think. Unless, Jeanette, do I need to pause for quorum reasons?
No, but you might want to let me go ahead and do the roll call first.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
that's okay.
I always think that comes first, but gotcha. All right, go ahead and do a roll call.
All right. Roll call. Matt Mathewson.
Here.
Kirsten Wainsvik.
Here.
And Claire, you here?
She is here, but she won't tell us because she can't hear.
She won't tell us. So I'm having her do it in the chat. So she is responding now, and Eric will be on shortly. So, but we do have a quorum, just an advisory. Asia Philbin, a member of our committee, has retired from her position. So we are down to 4 members. Back to you, Kirsten.
Okay, so I will go forward then with the virtual meeting reminders for those joining virtually to help facilitate a well-ordered virtual meeting. The guidelines include please mute your microphones. This will ensure we don't have feedback or other background noises interfering with the speaker of the moment. If a committee member would like to ask a question, please use your raise your hand feature. Remember to lower your hand once your question has been addressed. And when you're ready to speak, please unmute your microphone, especially during votes. Do not forget to remute when you have finished. And as a reminder, audience members are only permitted to speak during the call to the audience unless called upon by a committee member. This meeting is being recorded to satisfy open meeting law requirements. So with that, we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we'll move on then to a safety share. Does anyone have a good safety share?
We've had a few of them that I heard just recently, but in wastewater, we've had a few more incidents and accidents in the last, especially this month, but even last month we had one. And this month, I think we've had 3. I don't know if they're all recordable or none of them are recordable. I haven't got all the information yet, but we did have some incidents. And one of them I heard could have been serious, but I guess the individual didn't get hurt seriously, but he could have. And what happened? And I'm just waiting for some reports. But nonetheless, we've, for the obvious reason, because of the rain, a lot of slick, slippery surfaces. So we did slips, trips, and falls on the wet surfaces right now. And I'm not sure. It looks like it may still rain some more today. So be careful with your footing. And then because we have seen warmer weather and more warmer weather is coming very soon after the storm passes. The snakes, we've started seeing snakes in our industrial environments popping up. They're coming out of their hiding places, excuse me, during the warmer weather, which is a little early this year, so be aware. And I think that's all I got, unless somebody else has one.
Sounds good. Should we redo an audio check? Claire, are you good with audio? Great.
Yeah.
And
sorry about
Eric,
that.
no, you're good. We're glad to have you join us. And then Eric, is that you that joined us as well?
Yeah, I'm on my phone. I'm trying to get signed in. Microsoft just threw me out.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we're glad to have you join us, at least audio wise. That's perfect.
And when Claire responded, I heard her, but not very well. It was kind of quiet. Is your volume up, Claire?
Maybe I was mumbling.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
You're-
probably
that's-
mumbling.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
Good. All right. With that, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from our last RWRAC meeting for the Financial Subcommittee on January 12th. Did everybody have a chance to review those minutes? And does anyone have any corrections, additions, anything they want Jeanette to change?
I'll move we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion carries that we have approved our meeting minutes. All right, so we'll move on to our first agenda topic. We've got 3 on here. We'll go as far as we can in the meeting today. The first one is CIP fiscal year 26 10-year forecast. Changes that have happened. I think Jaime is going to give an overview of some changes since we first saw this earlier this year, and implications and discussion, I guess, of items that are on there with an eye to the Financial Subcommittee's interest that forecast be as inclusive, I think, as possible so that we know what we're financially forecasting. So Jaime, whatever overview you would like to give us of some updates there.
All right, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see the spreadsheet?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
So I'm zooming into the area here where we have the yellow highlighted areas. And earlier.
Jaime, just to hold on, just 1 second, please. Could everybody but Jaime please mute your phone? We're getting feedback. Go ahead and try again, Jaime.
Better? Sounds better?
Much better, thank you.
Gotcha. Right, so the spreadsheet here is narrowing it down to where the highlighted areas are. Those were the recent changes. Everything else is the same. No dollar amount on per individual project changed. What changed was when the dollar amount was forecasted. Recently, we received a request to reallocate $11 million to avoid having to or falling under our ratio for next fiscal year. So this is what you see here highlighted in FY27. These 3 projects here. We moved $5 million from next year for the Saurita Reclamation Facility project to the tail end of it. The total amount is the same for the project. It's just shifting out $5 million of the forecasted amount we're gonna spend on that project. The same thing happened with the interceptor from Saurita to Green Valley. We shifted out $5 million to offset that amount next year farther into the tail end of the project. So we're shifting it out at the tail end of the project. And we did the balance here under the digester facility by shifting the balance out to the tail end of the project. So that total of $11 million pushed out address the concern for next fiscal year's ratio. And I'm probably Art and Michelle are here. If I explain that right or wrong, they can correct me if needed. Those were the only changes made on the spreadsheet that you have seen previously.
Great. So that explains when we get down to the totals, then the moving out, like I think it went from, what was it, 109 or something like that to 98 there in that first year. I think as noted in the, yeah,
Right.
in that,
Yep.
that first one. Okay, perfect. So with that, let's open it up for discussion, for questions or comments about the CIP and for Jaime. Let's see. Oh, Eric, I see your hand up. Good. And then remember to unmute. There you go.
Okay, yeah, I finally got to where I can see everything and I'm online. That helps. I'm laying out my concerns that we're getting started. We're not really getting started. We've had, as Jaime explained at the meeting last month, this has been already 5 years worth of work done. And we're moving forward on the Santa Rita resource reclamation project. And I'm fine with the fact that we need it. I just don't think we need it now. And I would firmly believe that we need to move it out because of timing. And let me see if I can explain why. Number one, I think the project can be designed. I think we can go forward with that design process and get that finalized. So we're at a shovel-ready point. But that shovel-ready point could take place a number of years down the road. Number two, I think the interceptor line is probably a key point in all of this, and I would accept having it built, designed, and funded to be built currently so that it's ready to accept the new plant down the road. Number three, I don't see the population explosion down here that is forcing this issue to move along. Sahuarita does not want to participate financially in this. They're building out the Sahuarita Rancho Sahuarita, and I'm not seeing anything or hearing anything in regards to development that's going to take place roughly in the next 5 to 8 years. The sales of homes have slowed considerably. We have the fact that the extension for the Canoa Ranch project hasn't started as of yet, which is holding up the build out of Canoa Ranch and the additional Santa Rita Highlands area. And that project is only slated based upon the CIP to go to the Arizona Department of Transportation rest area, and then it dies. And it isn't slated to, in the next 10 years, to be completed. So there's no inflow from that side that would push onto the facility at Green Valley. Green Valley is in its middle years, if I understand correctly. Projects that are built, wastewater, are built for 50-year cycle. It's at 25, maybe 26. It still has a life in it. Let's use it. And then move forward with the building of the Santa Rita facility to be in a way that allows it to be modified or upgraded with more service capability as Sahuarita expands. Has anybody seen the DMA report, excuse me, from Sahuarita yet, and what their plans are and how they see that expanding? I haven't. I can't seem to find anybody that has, but in asking, I just find that we're rushing into this, and I think we could take a slower line of action on this. And I'll leave it at that because I've thrown a lot out there.
Okay. Regarding the CIP, two of the things that I heard, which maybe Jaime can answer since we're talking about the CIP plan itself and what's in it, is something about the Aravaca interceptor. Jaime, is the full interceptor value in the 10-year plan? Eric's alluding to like 2 phases of it. Do you have, I guess I'm a little confused on that point.
Yep, let me into that one. There's the Canoa Ranch extension.
Okay.
That's the first phase. It goes from Canoa Ranch, the overpass, to the rest area south, the I-19 rest area. The second phase would tie in the rest area to Elephant Head, and that will complete the interceptor.
Okay, but the second, which is the rest stop to the Elephant Head, is not in the CIP right now?
The second phase is not. We've waited to see how everything settles before we program that second phase.
Okay.
So with that, what I mean is we want to see where the actual construction cost GMP from a contractor for the plant and the interceptor comes in before we commit to other things that are needed. It's going to happen probably after. The worst case scenario happens after the plan is in place, but it will happen. If we can make it happen before that, because there are cost savings on the interceptor or the program itself, then we can move and include that second phase in the CIP program.
Hey,
Eric,
I mean,
I'm going to need you, hold on a second. Eric, I need you to mute, please. We're getting a lot of feedback. Go ahead, please.
Jaime, a question, is the design for both phase 1 and 2 being performed at the same time, or is it just phase 1 design is all that was being worked on?
The design for the whole alignment is included in the first phase. We needed to make sure that the two ends tie. Yep.
And then, so we'll have the design complete for phase 2 with this first phase that's included in there. And we already purchased the pipe a while ago for both phases. So that's already on the ground here for the whole thing. So it's easier to put that second phase in if and when we know we'll have monies available or there's an opportunity to do so. And there could be a number of scenarios that would drive us to do that on shorter notice. But otherwise, we preferred to keep it off because of the pressure on the overall capital and the debt service ratios and all that. It wasn't a mandatory, we have to do it. It would be nice to get that final lagoon out of there, other than the fact that there is lagoons in service at the Green Valley site as well. But, you know, we're almost out of the lagoon business, and it will be nice to do that in my lifetime. But there isn't a pressing issue. So that second phase of actual construction and the remaining costs associated with that, which aren't as much as there was from the first phase, because some of them are already expended in the first phase. So hopefully that helps answer the question.
Thank you. trying to wrap my head around it just a little bit. So what I'm hearing then is the $8 million that's in there for this fiscal year, which is obviously part of 13 million that was original, but there's 8 million that's being spent in this 5-year outlook, right? To finish that up is the phase 1 and all of the engineering in order to make that shovel ready. I guess as a financial subcommittee, if we're looking at rates long term, it would seem like if you think that you may build that anytime, even in out years, say fiscal year 35, having some ballpark figure in there would be wise, because then as we are looking at the program as a whole, we've got a feel for all of the costs that may be coming up if you're wanting to bring those flows over. Or is that flow for homes that haven't been built, Jackson? I guess I'm trying to understand.
So there's still plenty of capacity at RWRAC Junction. It's just a lagoon, so it's not really
Right.
It is treatment, but a very low level of treatment. But it's our plan as through experience, when we go through, even in the 5-year plan, things happen. We come up with something that, causes a delay or, I mean, this happens all the time. And so the way we have planned to do phase 2 of that sewer line project, of that extension, Canoa Ranch sewer extension, is if another project gets pushed out further than it's currently forecasted, then that's how things will actually happen. So that allows room to complete the Canoa Ranch extension phase 2 because some other project got moved out to 2035 or 2036 or somewhere in the outer years. So we don't plan to do it unless a window opens up from some project not being able to go at the pace that you see on the 5-year plan right now.
Okay.
If Sarita was pushed out still we would be able to potentially slip in the Canoa Ranch phase 2 because Sarita dollars got moved out into additional later years,
Okay.
for instance. But sometimes they happen without us designing them to happen. Things happen on the project or something comes up that wasn't anticipated and it forces the project to be delayed. And that happens, Jaime, you can comment if you'd like.
Now, you cover all the scenarios where we could include that in the program. It's at this point, if we knew for sure it's going to happen after, we can plug in a project in the 5 to 10 year program. But if we can make it earlier than that, we would just plug it in now. So those are options that we can address.
Is to put a placeholder for it, Jaime?
Yes, what I'm trying to avoid is having the shifting that project up and down until we nail down a good place for it. We're trying to get a good picture of where it should be and try and stick to that schedule.
Right. And the Canoa Ranch, I'm trying to remember what the flows were. They were really, really lower. Does the rest of the committee have some comments on this? I guess what we're discussing is, the idea of either having a placeholder for it in the far out years, just to acknowledge that it's a goal eventually, although not currently, or otherwise. Oh, Claire, sorry, you're on a different hand raising page. There you are. Go ahead, please jump in.
Oh, I just wanted to say that seems like a very reasonable response to the situation. I like the way Jaime's suggesting that, it's a little bit mobile right now because we're not sure where it is. So that all seems really reasonable to me. So
To keep it off? Is there any other discussion from the committee or?
We want to just be careful not to put projects that we're thinking about a lot of things that we could put in
Right.
there, but we're making sure we're only spending enough to keep within our financial plan and our rate workbook to keep us at our debt service ratio and the rate increases we've identified. And if something changes on any given project, all that comes into question, but we just didn't want to put something in that we know we can take outside of the 10-year window. We could put it in at year 11, then it's not anywhere in it's out there if somebody wants to see it out there, but it's not impacting the rates and that type of thing, because it's one that we have flexibility on.
That's what I'm wondering, is if it could be put on as a placeholder for like year 11, just far out there, because it's in your mind to do it eventually, just to acknowledge that it's an eventuality. Hopefully you've got even a class 5 cost estimate from some feasibility study phase that could be thrown on there. It wouldn't be in the rate workbook that is critical for the first 5 years, but it would be acknowledged that it is on the longer term plan. And of course it could shift further on.
Understand, yeah.
I think it would be helpful as we are wrapping our heads around that. Wish list may not be the right answer, but all of the things that may come into this program reasonably in the next 10 years. Eric, go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, when it comes to the finances, and I know we're going to talk about the rate book behind this, but I'm also looking at what we can pay down on the current borrowed money so that we have a smaller amount when we start this large project. And I'm concerned that the large project that we're looking at, we don't have all the numbers in it. We don't have, for instance, I haven't seen anything in the potential cost of decommissioning Green Valley, or how we're going to manage the treated effluent if it's going, how we're going to work on that. And I know there are a lot of players that want to have a piece of that treated effluent down here in Green Valley. So, I don't think we've gotten the complete picture. And I hate to say it that way, but I keep looking at this globe, and the snow in the globe is blocking my view.
I can comment on those too if you like. The Green Valley clean closure, if we follow the Royal Road model, to achieve clean closure, we just need to meet certain criteria from ADEQ. And most of it is blocking the influent pipe that goes into the plant and cleaning up any sludge or debris that remains on the tanks. All of that is O&M money, and it's usually done with a jug. That's the way we handle Royal Road. And it was not a lot of money in the big scheme of things. And we achieved our ADEQ requirement that way. The same thing can happen in Green Valley. On the effluent, the options are so wide. It can go from zero investment to $50 million of investment, depending on the wish of the board. So the scope is so scattered, and all the budgets are so scattered that it is not feasible to plug a number in there and impact the CIP 5-year program, or it has to be the 5-year program, obviously, because we need to address the effluent from the plant once it's operational. So it is still too undefined for us to plug a number in the CIP program. Does that make sense?
It does.
Well,
My reaction though is that it's probably somewhere between 0 and 50, and having a placeholder acknowledgement in there so that we can see, even if it's at year 6 or you know, right when you're bringing the plant. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I'm
and-
assuming when you say zero, tell me what zero looks like.
Well, and Kirsten, I would even go so
Yeah.
far as to say it's negative because, you know,
Okay.
some of the leading options are, for instance, the mine or others would pay to put in infrastructure and pay for the effluent. So it doesn't cost
Okay.
us anything, and it's actually a revenue stream on their dime or somebody else, a water company, somebody else. The town wants to grow, they may want to do it. So we think that that's going to be our recommendation and direction and preference, but
Hmm.
the board has to decide because of the importance of effluent in the community, whether it's for drinking water or riparian habitat or taking, you know, commercial and industrial businesses off of groundwater. All that's up to the board where they want to go with it. And they will know when they make that decision that if for instance, you know, maybe the worst case is Pima County Wastewater pays to put effluent lines to the remaining golf courses to get them off of groundwater. You know, that's one extreme. I don't support that, but I don't get a vote in the board's decision. You know, I'll make my recommendation and why, but I'm all about making our cost the most reasonable for our ratepayers. And to me, it would be an option where infrastructure is paid for by others and the effluent is purchased by others as a revenue stream for the department as opposed to one of the others. But I'm just telling you that it doesn't mean anything because the board may want to go a complete different direction. But if they do, and it's a you know, like the golf courses, guess what? It's going to cause the rates to go up and they have to balance that out in their decision. So I agree with Jaime. We shouldn't put any money out there until we really know that it is a project that we're going to have to spend money on.
Okay. Thanks for that input, Eric. I see your hand up, and then Claire after that.
Currently, Quail Creek takes 1 million+ gallons of treated effluent, and all it's done is recharged into the aquifer. And they can do that at Green Valley, or can they do that at the new Santa Rita plant? Is that contract still going to be viable after they put in the Santa Rita plant, or is there something in the legalese of that contract that says once we build another plant, you're cut off?
Yeah, the preliminary evaluation from the county attorneys is that they will be cut off. They will not have access to that effluent, but that's not a finished product. They're still evaluating all the nuances in the language of the contract.
Thank you. That's helpful.
And the worst case, if they still felt that Robeson, Quail Creek had some rights to get the effluent, they would be responsible. You know, in that worst case scenario, they would be responsible for plumbing that effluent back to their area, their recharge area and whatnot. So, but we don't believe that's the way that the contract reads, and we're believing that it's going to be a whole brand new ball game when we move facilities, make a new facility.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. I didn't know the method that Robeson was getting theirs or the contract implications. So thank you for that. Claire?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you know, that to me the CIP is the capital improvement plan. And it's separate from O&M, and we have other budgets where we look at the whole thing. And so I'm a little concerned about putting placeholders in when they're not. That's you know, when we're really uncertain or I'm questioning if that's the right way to show these things. Maybe there could be, and I don't know, this is really a question for Jaime and for folks, Jackson and the folks at Wastewater, but is there a way to put how would you say that we record those things so that it doesn't make the CIP sort of cluttered or unclear?
If you would like to consider the easy disposal of effluent is sending it to the Santa Cruz on a pipeline by gravity, right? And I would throw out there that within the $340 million budget, that piece of pipe from the plant to the Santa Cruz probably can fit within that budget. So if that makes everybody feel better, I think within the budget, the default disposal similar to Tres Rios or Agua Nueva can fit in there.
Yeah, I was thinking
But,
like maybe a one pager to the board, to us, to our advisory board, saying, there have been discussions about these items and this is where they fit, so that we don't have to redo this ground. I mean, I feel like we've had these discussions a lot of times because they're not obviously in there, and the question is like, where do they go, or is there a placeholder? And I just feel like we're sort of like retreading this, and maybe we should have something that says, the closure of Green Valley, this is how it works, and this is what part of the budget it's in, and so that the things that are not immediately captured in here, we're not having to have memory within our group about where that goes, such as the thing you just said, like to say, this item is embedded in this item, so that we're clear on the things that have been brought up in this committee. I think that
I would
be
agree.
helpful.
Thank you. I would agree, because I'm coming from it, just reading the Corolla report, I'm seeing, kind of their feasibility cost estimates. And I'm looking at this on a 5-year, but a 10-year, just trying to make sure we're all in, that anything that the department thinks could be on the table is on the table with a placeholder, or is rolled into something that's actually good news to hear. But I like Claire's idea of just kind of itemizing some of those things, things that have come up, Green Valley closure, just placeholder for something for effluent disposal, knowing that you're making a plant that is landlocked at the moment,
It could be very
simple.
informal. It doesn't
Yep.
have to be like an official doc, like just something informal that we can refer to, more of a reference.
And then the RWRAC came up. Let's see. I've heard things kind of go back and forth on the Corona de Tucson and its pipeline, that it's currently not being considered, but like Jackson in our RWRAC meeting, you said, well, actually it could come back. So is that something that needs an 11th year placeholder, because you might want to revisit that?
And we've excluded that because our general MO is that development puts in the pipeline. So as development moves west from the Corona plant, pipeline will be, pieced together over some period of time. And then when it gets maybe close enough to the plant, we might finish it off, or, say, hey, it makes more sense to, to contribute some capital, which, on some cases we do, but right now I wouldn't know where to begin to put a pipeline in there that I don't currently have in my horizon in the 10-year plus range to put in. It will be as development grows our direction, then it might make sense at some future date.
See, that's exactly the kind of comment I think could be in a little addendum where we just, maybe it's just a discussion about additional items, and I know that's maybe more work, but I think it would help us not, like keep track of some of these details that we don't know as much about.
Claire, I love that idea. You've got sort of your feasibility study through the Corolla report. You're having the other discussions with your program manager internally on these. It's not exactly a master plan, but it's almost a staging, whatever you want to call this. It's a staging plan of where your crystal ball currently is in your thinking, so that when we pass this budget for this next year, or when the board passes the budget, we kind of know what we were standing on.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand your guys' request, and maybe we could clarify some things, but it's also a very slippery slope. And let me give one example. We had the old power plant at the old Ina Road / Tres Rios facility where we used to generate our own power. That place has been shut down and mothballed and gutted and all that. And we had a project we carried on our CIP for a number of years where we were going to convert that building into a joint operations maintenance, you know, lineup room and, you know, change room and all kind of things to get all the same people in the same area. And I can't remember all the exact details at this moment, but it was a several $1 million conversion, and we saw the benefits that could provide, and it was kind of a nice to have project. But as we've continued to refine our effort, we've taken it out because there's just too much competition for the funds we have to stay within our spending limits and allowances to keep our financial plan within line. And so we could add a lot of those projects that are on our mind and we talk about, but you know, there's discretion that maybe in 15 years we'll do that. You know, somebody can pull it up and resurrect it because, you know, maybe we'll be in a better cash flow situation or times will change or whatever. But I just want to be careful about it because, you know, we're putting things, you know, we're removing things that we just don't think make sense in light of where we're at with the picture we get to look at today in front of us. And there's things that you guys have brought up that, yeah, we've already thought through, but, you know, using the Corona pipeline to the west, we wouldn't plan to put it in because that's we normally don't put development pipelines in. On some occasions we do, very minimal, but in general, that's not how we do our business. As growth comes a certain way, and then we have to react and do whatever it is we do. And sure, we may contribute something to that pipeline way down the road, but I just want to be careful what we're putting in and why, because I think we could go into tremendous discussion about, let's agree on how much and when to put some cost in there for a Corona pipeline. I think we would struggle to come up with, you know, we'd have a
Yeah.
big variability there.
Yeah,
Claire.
but can I just jump? I don't know if I'm the next raised hand, but I
You are.
totally agree. Okay, I completely agree that it shouldn't have numbers. I'm thinking of thoughts like the, you know, the anything extra. It's just sort of to explain the thought process. So example, one thing we will be dealing with is effluent from the Green Valley area. That will be, because the costs are variable, we will explore that over time. You know, you know, we do not have it in the CIP because it is at the discretion of the Board of Supervisors, you know, an explanation, or the Corona pipeline saying something like, the Corona pipeline is, you know, who pays for it is very unclear. We may contribute money down the line, but it is not in the CIP because of this. That's what I was thinking of, Jackson, not saying, oh, here's a second plan that backs up the CIP. I was more thinking of, here's why these things aren't in the CIP and why they, you know, how we're thinking about them strategically. We're of a strategic document. And the only reason I'm asking, or I'm thinking that would be useful is because we keep having some of these questions come up again and again. And to Eric's point of this could be down the road, my feeling is we don't have that clear an idea about where we are down the road anyway, because there's quite a few, you know, balls in the air at this point, and the CIP is the best understanding that we have of where we are now, but other factors may come into play. So that's what I was thinking of, not an extra plan that has dollars, that anything like that. More of an explanation. Is that clearer? I don't know how you feel about that. Maybe that's even too much pinning down. Oh, I've lost Jackson. Oh no.
No, it's
You are.
okay.
Okay.
And I'll just jump in because my comment is exactly kind of along those lines, Claire, as well. The way I'm looking at it is, as Jackson says, this is the biggest, you know, CIP investment of these kinds of dollars. And that's why I'm a little more looking at, hey, do we have some kind of a ballpark figure for that effluent pipeline represented here, along with all the other big numbers? Because if you built it and if we funded it, that would be big. These other ideas are great. You know, if a mine or somebody else or developer is willing to pay for that, fantastic. Same thing with the Green Valley closure. Wasn't aware that we had some ways of doing that. And the Corona de Tucson, that, you know, that will be developer driven and paid for. But because these dollars are so big and the borrowing for them will be so big in the near term, having them represented if needed at all is important, at least in the 10-year and 11th year, whatever, so we can look at the whole thing. But if not, the paradigm that we are discussing today, it's good, like Clara's talking about, just to have the paradigm documented. If Jaime is saying, hey, I think we can build that pipeline to the Santa Cruz within the Sahuarita budget, let's just document that was the working assumption in year 1 of the program, or whatever we're calling this. And I will yield to any response from Jaime or Jackson or others that may want to jump in on that thought.
No, I understand, and I made some notes here on a draft memo accounting for those variables, I guess, if you want to call them that way, to kind of document that.
Yeah,
I think that would
be, it could be called strategic, like strategic thinking on major projects or something. So
Yeah,
it's not like a plan behind a plan that we all have to, you know, that everybody has to look at and approve. And I'm just concerned of creating a document that creates additional, we don't want additional problems. We just want to have a better understanding.
Exactly. I think that's a good solution to it. Okay, so I want to move on to our other agenda item, unless there are any other pieces of the larger program that any other members of the committee feel Jaime ought to consider in such a documentation or amendment to the proposed CIP, putting something in year 11. Is there any other topics of the larger program that anyone thinks maybe also is worth including, mentioning, or otherwise? Okay, so so Jaime, just so that I'm clear, what have you committed to? You're making us a memo, is that right? What's the action item here?
Right. So if I understand, it will be beneficial to write a memo to the group about the plan for the effluent, the plan for the Green Valley closure, future thoughts on Corona de Tucson eventually connecting to this new plant, and willing.
And Arivaca, I think Arivaca, just whenever
Arivaca,
that.
and connection to the Arivaca Lagoon. Those 4 things. I
think those are the 4 things that could carry some extra funds if the county ended up needing to go after them anytime in the 10-year window. But if you've got other thoughts on how those may be funded, and that's why they're not in the CIP, just documenting that that's the case is fantastic. Eric, do you want to comment? I see your hand.
I'll go back to, I appreciate the fact that we got the Corello study, because that laid out a bunch of information that of how that was done, of what could be happening. And Jackson, not to pull your hair out any more than I already have, you know, there were certain assumptions made for that study. And those assumptions are going to take time to come to fruition, i.e. Arivaca, i.e. Corona de Tucson. And so I'm not seeing or not getting the indication that there is going to be the flow that's needed to advance the Santa Rita project now. And so I'm just kind of living with this rat and running around in the squirrel cage, that is saying, hey, I think if we work a little bit harder on our financial position for the next couple of years and then start the project, I would feel much more comfortable with that position than I am in the position that the CIP is proposing now. And that's coming from me. I'm not a wastewater person, but I kind of look at things in my way, and that's what I see my position on this committee to be, is to throw out my thoughts and let everybody think about them. Thank you.
Matt, go ahead and jump in.
You're muted, Matt.
You're muted, Matt.
Yep, got it. Thank you. The other day, Kirsten, when we were talking, you had said something about a concern from the Corolla report that made you think that maybe the cost projections were significantly understated because there was a multiplier effect that hadn't been taken into account. This is something that I'm afraid I don't understand exactly, and I just it has worried me not understanding it, I guess, and wondered whether that's been resolved or if that's still a concern of yours, or whether it's out there.
I can state what I stated in the larger RWRAC, and then I think it's better for the county to talk to the how it's been addressed, resolved, or otherwise. So I just had noted that in the Corolla report, it states that it is a Class 5 cost estimate, which typically is used, and there is a page, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but there is a page that the Corolla report indicates this is a Class 5. It's got 2% definition. That's very common for a feasibility study of this nature. And so when they make those baseline cost estimates, such as an Appendix B, page 1, which is the larger centralized version, those are baseline costs, but you have to honor the thought process, which is that the Class 5 cost estimate is minus 50% or plus 100, meaning that's the bracket that you would expect for that to come in. That's just kind of general engineering speak for. We're only at 2% definition, all things in. If the entire page, whatever it was, 800 or 400 million, I think it was for the CIP component, you might see costs up to 100% more. So if it's 400, 800 million, and that's taking into account that it's not fully defined, that there may be escalations and prices may come in as you do this project in a higher. Typically, I would be surprised if it came in at 800, but it's just honoring the fact that it's probably going to come in more than 400 all in, right? Everything that's on that page. So what's on the table, my observation is what's on the table right now is building the Sahuarita plant, closing the Green Valley plant, doing some kind of a recycle pipeline or something. So the department is picking some things off of that Appendix B1, and they've got a program manager that is doing other cost estimates in the nearer term, hopefully to maybe a Class 4 with a smaller bracket. So I'll have to pitch it to the department to discuss what class estimates are we working with on the CIP for this, and how have you worked with that bracket. But it doesn't surprise me, knowing the elements that the department has and what that Corolla report has, that we are at plus $100 million right now for the things that are on the table, knowing that bracket that Corolla had on there. So there, I've tried to frame it. Jaime, you take it from here as to what do these numbers mean?
Okay, so there's two really big numbers in the Corolla report. There's a 4 and maybe a 900,000 million. Those are year 2050, 2075. So we're at 2030-ish range of budget. So their number is looking way into the future and accounting for all that compound interest. So right now, what we did was take a local construction estimating company. That's what they do, versus maybe a Corolla guesstimate at the time. So we went and hired RLB, which is a contractor or a consultant that's all they do. They do project management, they do consulting, cost estimating, and they help companies put together their budgets. And that's the budget we're using for the program right now. And it's not the bottom, it's not the top, it's kind of the middle. And that's their current estimate for the program as of earlier or late last year. So I would take that more recent estimate as a better gauge than the Corolla estimate done maybe 2-3 years ago. So trying to put in context, the numbers in the Corolla report were very wide, I guess, and very far out, whereas we're trying to narrow down our numbers to a near future in the next 2 to 5 years.
And to back that, Jaime, just to make sure we're clear. So when you say the program, you mean the program elements that are on the table, meaning the treatment plant and the interceptor elements,
Correct.
not
Yes.
all the quote program, everything that was in that appendix B, page 1 items. Okay. And it sounds like you're saying that the definition is maybe at least a class 4 on the RLB cost estimate or something. It's
I don't recall top of my head, but I can bring it over and highlight it and send it back to you all so you can see kind of what the range is they're
Okay.
looking at.
And understanding that we're under a procurement, release that information only if it helps you or guards your procurement needs. I think this committee can wait. I think ultimately it would be good for us to have some of those backing documents, but knowing that you're under a procurement, if you just tell us it's a class 4, but don't give us the elements at this time, knowing that later this summer when you get some things under contract, that's also okay, in my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know if other people, I'm just trying to
Makes
guard
sense.
all your things. Okay. Was there any, Matt, okay, Matt, that was your question. Was there any other follow-up to
No,
that
that's
that you
very
had?
helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, does anyone have any objections for us to move on to the rate workbook discussions? And the reason we are just looking at the spreadsheet was Asia raised it, I think, at our last meeting a little bit, but the idea that this is so big and some of it could spread into the out years. The thought process on this item B is what tools or adjustments to the tools would be useful to the committee to see a little bit beyond maybe the 5-year look ahead that we're used to needing to do, because these dollar values are so large comparatively and the interest may be carried longer than the 5-year outlook that we have. So that's my best way of framing that. I'm just going to pitch it to you to start with, if you don't mind.
Can you guys hear me? Just can't see me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
there we go. Okay, so yeah, we sent out, it's really a half spreadsheet, if you will, that Jeanette sent out. And the reason that we sent out the half spreadsheet is really to focus the committee's attention on the top part of that document that deals with the assumptions and the drivers that those assumptions have on the spreadsheet. So in terms of, Michelle, do you want to share the screen? So I can. Okay, yeah, so again, we want to focus the committee's attention really on the top part of the assumptions and then where the dollars fall within the forecasted revenues and expenditures based on those assumptions. Michelle also took this out beyond our standard 5-year period, making some assumptions as far as rates go. And you know, what I will say that we also don't know is, as noted at the top there, we're not accounting for any new customers from Santa Rita. We also don't know if what amount of revenues we could be deriving from I think it's the DMA zone. So those are unknowns right now. So, I mean, I think from 2031 and beyond, you know, we obviously have some work to do there. But we did take this down to basically live within our current rate structure that was approved by the Board of Supervisors last year. So this does not include a rate increase, if you will, that we put forth at the last meeting. And that was based upon feedback from both Jackson and county administration that they maybe would not support going back to the board for rate increases at this particular point. So like I said, at our full RWRAC committee, that was just one scenario that was presented. We heard the feedback, we came back, and we're talking about a different scenario here within this rate workbook. With that being said, I'm gonna pitch it over to Michelle to walk through the changes from the last rate workbook that we reviewed together at the full RWRAC, and this, I can tell you the rate factor is back to that 175 that was adopted. And it looks like we went back to the 3% on the O&M. So I do know that those are sort of consistent changes. And then we did talk about some of the levers that we can pull from a financing perspective. And I think, you know, we also pulled back on the CIP a little bit as well, to make sure that the numbers worked. So Michelle, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll be here for the conversation.
All right, so like Art said, basically what we did is previously we had showed rate increases in fiscal year 28 to try to get enough support that we could cover these out years at the ratings ratio. Based on the feedback, I took the increases out, and I don't have any increases beyond what the board approved through fiscal year 29. Based on this information, we will need rate increases, you know, after that. But we are basically showing you what the board has approved. This is how the numbers come through. I also reduced the debt service a little bit, trying to kind of keep us as close as I can to the 1.30. So I took the rate increase out, but I also reduced the debt service. What that means is we are pushing the debt service out, and similar to what Jaime referenced with the CIP, doesn't change the amount you owe. In my case, it actually means you owe more because I'm pushing the principal payments out to future years. So you're going to pay more for that debt, but I'm trying to keep you within the rate structure you currently have approved by the board, with the increases we're seeing in the operating expenses, trying to make it work within that scenario. So that's bottom line, you know, what Art referenced earlier, that this doesn't include the new customers that would be related to the Santa Rita. It also doesn't include any increase in operating costs related to Santa Rita. So do you know what I mean? The two go hand in hand, right? Once the plant opens, we are going to need to reflect those operating costs. We will make a request to the department to kind of get hey, what do you think the delta is between the closure of the one plant, you know, startup of operations at the new plant? What is that going to do to your O&M? You know, how many new FTEs do you have? What are your increased costs of chemicals and all those things? So none of that information is in here. So that's why, you know, we appreciate the request to kind of show these additional years, but we don't really have all the information yet to really show, you know, the impact of those additional years. So does that explain kind of why we focused on this up part? Because The defeasance schedule will change. If there isn't a rate increase, the defeasance schedule will change depending on the decisions that are made and how things play out with the cost estimates for the Santa Rita and the Interceptor. All of those things impact the defeasance plan. And as we've talked about in years past, we review the defeasance plan each year with the financial advisor, who you met, Kurt. It's all, depending on how much unrestricted cash we have, depending on what the future needs are. So we're trying to focus in on this side of the scenario. And once we have this information, we'll go back through and update on the defeasance schedule. So does anyone have any questions? Is there anything I can help explain as to what we put forward here?
My initial, and then I'll pitch it to some of the others, is thank you. I think this is exactly what the committee needed to see. It's all in where it's going with the current trends. I think we need to be hit between the eyes with the significance of this, just so we know what we're trying to juggle with you in these discussions. So thank you for running out the numbers. I'm not sure I would love to have a copy of this because it apparently goes, I'm guessing, with exactly what Jaime presented today in the CIP as well. And eventually I'd like to hear any other tools, Art, that you mentioned, that levers that you can pull, but I will throw it to Matt first since he has his hand up.
If I may, Kirsten, this document was forwarded to everybody with the meeting material.
Oh, sorry. I totally missed it then. Apologies.
That is A-okay.
That's right. I missed it too.
Was it in there? What's it called, Jeanette?
This is the RWRD rate workbook draft through fiscal year 35, 3/5/26.
Was it a separate email?
No?
Okay, never mind. We'll verify that the committee has that.
I can of course resend as well. So that is
Okay.
not a problem.
Thank you. I'm looking at the email reminder from Friday at 10, and maybe I'm just missing it in those 8 documents that I'm seeing attached, but nonetheless, carry on.
That's okay. I will resend. How's that? Just to make sure
Perfect.
everybody has it.
To me, Kirsten?
Yes. Sorry, Matt.
No.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
okay. So yeah, Michelle and Art, thanks for this product. Very helpful. And in this period of time, I'm figuring finally we'll have ROMP totally behind us. Do you have with refundings that have happened and all, do you have a sense of what the glide path of remaining ROMP debt is, where we stand with that?
I can get that for you and send it to Jeanette this afternoon. I don't have it
Okay.
off the top of my head, just which issues we considered the ROMP issues. I know I have the information, I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
This is a little bit of a side topic. It just keeps rolling around in my head a little bit, and I don't know how it's handled. The current program is talking about taking the Green Valley plant offline, and it occurs to me that there must be some value. If this were a used car, right, there'd be a Kelly Blue Book or a depreciated value on that plant. So my curiosity is, if there, and you don't have to go to this topic next, but at some point, if I could better understand how are we looking at depreciating large assets like the newer bin rod side of the plant that is 22-ish, 3-ish years old. How are we reflecting that in these budgets? What are we leaving on the table is what I'm trying to get at as well, in value, if we are closing that plant in the near term. So it's a side topic, but otherwise I do want to hear from Art about dials that we can turn. Oops.
Do you want me to answer that, or you want me to talk Eric? Because I thought Eric has his hand up as well.
If you don't mind, Art, go ahead and go forward. I think we have enough topics on the table, and then Eric, we'll pitch to you on some other side things here in a moment.
Yeah. So let me before I talk about the levers. Michelle, confirm for me. Did you in this rate workbook? Did you carry out the financing of the new Santa Rita facility out beyond what our standard 15 years is, or is this built on 15?
Yes. So this is a draft that does include one of the levers, which Art had referenced earlier. So what I did is the debt service that was related to the Santa Rita plant and the interceptor, 247 million of it, I took out over 25 years versus our standard repayment plan of 15 years. Please note, no one has approved that.
Yes, I was just gonna say, this is for conversation purposes only. I've not even sort of greased the skids with county administration on this piece. But it is one of the levers that we can pull to help get us to this 1.3 number. It's extending that. And the reason that I would consider doing that is, generally speaking, this type of facility is and Jackson, I'll look to you here. This got to be what a 25, 30-year facility that as far as useful life. And so when you're talking about issuing debt or financing a building of this magnitude, it makes sense to finance that over the useful life of the asset with which is being acquired, constructed, or built. And so that's why, and it creates generational equity. So you're not having today's ratepayers pay for a future a product that's going to only benefit future ratepayers that won't have to pay into this particular infrastructure construction project. So those are the reasons why I feel comfortable at least having the conversation. Now, whether county administration is on board with this, because I know that from a county perspective, the short amortization periods that we have been accustomed to have helped boost our county credit profile. But I do think the rating agencies would see this as a favorable item, because otherwise you're going to see that debt truncated over a 15-year period, which is going to put pressure, as we've seen, on that rating, that rate increase that we would have to go back to the board for. So that's one of the levers. The other lever, and I think Jackson has done this as well, is to reduce the capital program in these years where we are building this Santa Rita facility, and then adjust his capital program as such, right? Because these are all assumptions right now that we're building and that we're basing it off of. I think there was some conversation earlier about that we sort of felt that the county felt the same sort of pressure when it was building. And I don't know what the acronym ROMP stands for. So at some point, somebody's gonna have to tell me what that acronym stands for, just because I'm curious at this point. But when we were building the ROMP, we had these really high expenditure projections. When we actually got through the I guess it's value engineering and the things that we do from a construction perspective, we were able to bring those costs down. And so what another lever that we could do is we have these projections now as we get into the bid and the value engineering and changing the way that we're building it. If those costs come down, he can then supplement his CIP as those costs come down, depending on where they are in the depending on where they come in.
Now, let me jump in if I could. I'm cut in front of Matt because I took my hand down. I got tired of holding it up there. But ROMP is Regional Optimization Master Plan. It was it had a professional cost estimate of $720 million to deliver a regulatory compliant mandate from ADEQ. I mean, we weren't on a consent order or anything like that, but we had a certain time to meet the current, standards of water quality and stuff. So we had to invest money there. It's why we went away from voter approved bonds, because what if you went out to the voters to seek approval to do a regulatory mandated spend and they said, no, you still have to do it. So that's where we went to the kind of the change in how we funded wastewater at that point. And the 720 million came in at the end of the project at close to 605 million. So quite a savings. It was ahead of schedule and under budget, which is what you like to hear on any capital program. Jaime was the master craftsman at the wheel of the large ship that steered it in. And so it was a very successful effort. And we expect and hope that the Sarita, not quite to the same magnitude, but it's still a very large effort. And we hope that we will do the same thing with all the components of Sarita, and we plan, or Santa Rita, and we plan to deliver it in a very similar fashion to the successes of RWRAC. I have other
Thank you.
comments, but I got in front of Matt and he gets mad when I do that. He told me offline, but
I think we have Matt, and Eric, I think your hand was up. I don't know if it accidentally went down before Matt. Thank you. And then just very quickly, so what I'm understanding is that pay-as-you-go policy is what you're toying with. Is that correct then? The 15-year pay-as-you-go pillar, you're extending it out for 25 years, just to summarize.
Yeah, but I want to be very clear. It's not on the total, overall from a countywide perspective. It would just be for this facility in particular. Everything else would remain within our current policy.
Yep, and I see that it says 15-year maturities for issues in excess of 60 million, being at 15 years. And in this case, you're making it 25 years because this is large. Okay, sorry, just a little side point to the committee on our pillars. Eric,
Hey,
and then Matt.
I'm sorry, before you do that, Kirsten, I just have to, it's more just being consistent. And so when you said pay as you go 15 years, 15 years has been the historic county standard. Pay as you go has been trying to drive towards more like a 5-year payback or somewhere in between, depending on the overall county situation. So just making sure pay as you go is not 15. That's something less than 15.
No,
Actually,
I get you. I'm just looking at our pillar document, Jackson. I'm just noting that it allows our document says allow 15-year maturities for issues in excess of $60 million. So it sounds like that's the lever he's pulling, as he's making that one, since it's greater than 60 million to 25.
And just for clarity, pay as you go in the true sense is not issuing debt, but paying your CIP with cash
in advance
as you go, right?
Yeah, I'm just reading from our pillars document. That's all I'm doing here. So, but thank you guys. Okay, Eric, Matt.
Okay.
Eric first.
Is your draft that you have presented here, is the bottom half available also? I only see the top half here on the screen. Is there the bottom half that shows the defeasance and all also available?
So what I had tried to explain earlier was we need decisions on this first half, and we need additional information on these out years before we can restructure the defeasance. So, yes, it exists, but it has not been updated because we had updated it based on the assumption that the large increase to the CIP in fiscal year 27 was going to require additional rates. We got the messaging that was not acceptable, so we had to change the debt. We had to make some changes. I haven't redone the defeasance schedule, and I'm not really in support of providing that until we have an understanding of what that future is going to look like, because the defeasance schedule will change every year based on what the unrestricted cash is that is available. And I know Jackson's mentioned this before, but this year we have seen, you know, a huge decrease in the biogas revenue. Well, we don't have a corresponding decrease in expense. So the normal operating margin that we would see at this point is going to be a lot less in fiscal year 26 because the revenue is not coming in where we thought it would. You know, so until we get additional information on some of those different variables, we're just trying to get everybody to focus here as this is what the implications are of having such a large change to that CIP with such short notice, right? We went to the ratepayers with the information that we had a year ago. That information turned out to be, you know, not the reality, right? So, you know, suddenly instead of issuing 60 million in 27, we've got a CIP program that is at 98 million. Do you know what I mean? That's $38 million of compression in 1 year. So everything is going to change based on that. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. So let me know.
No, that helps a lot in my understanding. Is there any kind of graph or form or Excel spreadsheet, for the lack of a better word, that shows what our total debt is and how we are managing that debt, that we could see? I'm kind of the opinion, and right or wrong, that if we can pay down some more of that debt before we start this next major project, it would be a benefit not only for the department, but for the ratepayers.
Yeah, there's graphs that are in the financial plan each year. So what I can do is update those graphs and provide that information along with the ROMP information. But you know, our debt service is structured right now so that the average debt service payments are under 65 million. Right now in this scenario, they're going between 62 and 64 million. So there's a lot of variables. But there's several tranches that we have open right now. So I'll put the information together and get that over to Jeanette.
One other, and maybe I'm just speaking out of turn with this, but it's my understanding that the county itself is going out for a bond, and that, you know, I don't see those funds ever being used by the wastewater, but I wonder if what we're doing here will have a material effect on how people see the bond.
Yeah, let me speak to that a little bit. So right now, the county is planning, at least tentatively, on a November 2027 bond package put out to the voters. What that bond package looks like right now is it's in the infancy stages of there's a bond oversight committee that is required to be established. That committee consists of, I think there's a couple representatives from each district office along with other community members. That committee is barely in its infancy in terms of getting established. So we're a ways away from understanding what potential packages could be included in that voter bond package. And I don't see wastewater really being a part of that package. That's more for general obligation bonds. However, all of this, as far as what I'm hearing some feedback, so I don't know if somebody's not muted, but it's hard to talk when you hear yourself talk. What we do in terms of our total debt profile, you know, will have, you know, an impact in our you know, credit rating as a county, of which the wastewater falls under. The general obligation bonds are separately rated. I think the county has a AAA rating on our GO debt. So if it passes and when we go do issue that debt, we'll be separately rated from apart and distinct from wastewater. And then the general obligation bonds is levy a dedicated secondary property tax to repay that debt, which is partly why it's separately rated. So it will have a peripheral effect, but not really a direct impact on what the county is doing from that bond package perspective.
Thank you.
Great, Matt. I think you were next.
Yeah, thank you. Art, I just want to say thanks for considering the longer term repayment. I thought your rationale was very compelling, and I certainly am a supporter and hope that it is accepted as you run it up the flagpole. And just appreciate you considering that possibility.
Thank you for that feedback.
Jackson?
Yeah, I was just gonna also related to that topic, kind of answer or respond to Art's previous comments. They were very accurate, but we typically look at the life of a water reclamation facility or resource recovery facility, whatever you want to call them now, of around 30 years, 30 to 35, but probably 30 is the best number, not 50. 50 is for pipelines. We use 50 as what we expect for the useful life of a pipeline. So those are two numbers, 30 and 50 are probably our best estimates and how we look at it, just an FYI. And then, I'm just stating the obvious, but, I've always had a little bit of a struggle over the years, like if you look at the document in front of us and it's showing that we're projecting a 3% inflation for the entire time, going forward, but we're not getting a 3%, that's 3% in our cost, but we're not getting a 3% increase in our revenues unless we raise rates at approximately 3% every year. So, it doesn't surprise me. Of course, we're looking at future rates, but if you're going to say inflation is X, you probably should be very close to that in order to keep pace with one another. And we haven't done that in the past, and we've done a lot of other different things such as defeasance and paying debt forward and, tremendous cost scrutiny and efforts within the department and various, savings and those type of things. So just remember, we're showing 3% inflation for a long time. Typically, you should match your inflation with rates unless you have a tremendous cost-cutting plan in effect. And we've been doing that for a long time. And all right, I'm not going to say low-hanging fruit anymore. I hate that term, but I'll shut up now.
Okay, additional discussion. I guess for my own perspective, and I can't help but sort of do these mental gymnastics. Eric brought up the point of, maybe doing the interceptor in the near years and sort of delaying that treatment plant just a little bit, a few years until the developers would be more coming, if when the developers are shoveling, then you're shoveling on the treatment plant. It might be a thought experiment to do, but that's just a mental gymnastic. I don't know what anybody else thinks of that. Eric, jump in.
Thank you. 2 points. Jackson, I'm not in disagreement with you when it comes to watching inflation and how you set your rates. I think those are two volatile things that you have to follow. You also have some external things that happen to you. The increase in population, how does that fluctuate and maintain things? The other thing is that I think we have not touched on it, but I think it's an interesting attribute, and that is, we build this plant. My piece of property in Sahuarita has now become more valuable because now I have sewer service where before I didn't. And that value, I don't know how to equate that, but I do see this as a potential that it would have for the developers, that the minute that sewer plant is up and running, the value of their property now goes up, and it's something that they don't have to consider for their future of their development.
Kirsten, can I jump in now?
Yes, I was trying to figure out who to call on and nobody's hand. I'm like, I'm not sure where to go. Yes, Jackson.
My hand is tired. So I just, I'll comment again on the comments about delaying the project. And everything we do should be evaluated for the timing. That's an important part of it. But, and I know Jaime wants to say this, but I'm going to jump in. Jaime's more eloquent than I am, but I'm going to chop through it. We've had experiences where we've done some things, where we've done the engineering on projects and waited. And I think a year is about the limit where they won't stand on a project that's designed. Too many things can change in a year. Jaime, you can say, is it year and a half or some period of time where we had to redo engineering for stuff that we had done ahead of time. And so we learned our lesson about doing design efforts ahead of time because too much change, and the engineer that stamped it for the immediate period of time won't support it for things that change over time, and plus other criteria. But that's probably enough said on that. But also, I'm going to reiterate, I mentioned this before, and again, I don't have any problem having these conversations and going into it, but already we exceed the capacity of Green Valley. It's a 2 million, basically it's a 2 million gallon per day treatment facility and then a 2.1 million gallon lagoon. And we do have some hydraulic capability to put more through the treatment plant, but we don't have the aeration system. We'd have to invest in it. And this stuff is not cheap. And it's a 25, almost a 25-year-old plant. And guess what? In the 5 years it'll take to do Sahuarita, it'll be about 30. And that's kind of the useful life we get out of them without major investment in them. And you don't want to put that major investment because you're not going to recoup it if you're just delaying Sahuarita a couple of years. Now you won't be running that plant over that additional period of time to recoup your investment. So, there's a whole bunch of reasons why we think this timing, and it takes so long to get to this point. It's hard just to say, hey, let's push it out a year or two. I don't think we do the engineering, and without doing the engineering, we're going to struggle to determine what's the pipeline route, what's the ingress egress, what are we going to do with effluent? All those things are things that we're working on now, and it will take the help of these engineering firms to get those ironed out and to further refine our cost estimates to make sure we still are, within that 340 or less million that we've put out there. So I just struggle a little with it, and I just want to say, make sure you understand our perspective, but always willing and worth having those discussions on the timing of the delivery of this 10-year program or 5-year program that you see in front of you.
Thank you. You absolutely make a good point about the aging of the engineers standing on their seal on those design plans. You're absolutely right there. And it's interesting to hear the department's experience that really even, just a 1.5 year is kind of the limit on that. And I think you're right. The engineering, my high observations that I made at the large RWRAC still stand. All paths lead to these sorts of investments in the end, and the engineering is needed, in my opinion, this next year, regardless. So I'm not sure where to take us from here. I think what we're just collectively struggling with is the knowledge of those out years but we needed to have the clarity for those out years. And I think that's kind of where the weight of it is probably resting for all of us. And Jackson's point of the 3% inflationary increase is also, I agree, well made. So what's the pleasure of the committee? Is this the part of having this on the agenda at all was to for us to be able to see this. Thank you for bringing this tool to us. We needed to see the impact on our pillars, the impact in those 6th through whatever 11th years, and to struggle along with you. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the short term here objective is to get our financial plan to the committee in the proper course, and before that we need the rate workbook squared away, and so I guess you know, are we going to be able to move something to the full committee in the March meeting, I guess would be my question.
And I think that's the goal. Is bottom line, we need to, well, I don't know, need maybe is a strong word. The desire of the committee is to maybe come to some terms on a 5-year plan that we can move forward to the larger committee. I can't speak from a lack of experience if it's ever happened that it hasn't gotten out of the financial subcommittee before. I don't know. But yes, that's what we would like to do, is to move forward with making some kind of recommendation to the larger RWRAC and of course to the Board of Supervisors. So that things move forward in the near term. Art?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. There's a bit of operational work that Jackson and I need to do with county admin. I think that probably lays the foundation before we incorporate any of this into the rate work into a formal rate workbook, and that is to get some acknowledgement that they want to move forward with extending the amortization period on this particular project. In the absence of that, we're going to come back to you and tell you that there's going to need to be other levers that are pulled that, you know, that we're going to need to address to move that rating ratio back up, right? So that's not the work of the committee. I want to make sure that they know that.
Right.
That's the work of Jackson, me and Jackson together, sitting with Carmine and Administrator Lesher, to make the numbers work as presented. If once they sign off on that, then we can come back and say, hey, we have their support in that endeavor, and then you guys can take the appropriate steps that you've seen and talked about here.
Okay. Thank you. So it sounds like there's some work to be done, maybe a revision to this that will come to our committee. I am open for us to having another committee meeting if there's something else for us to review in the next couple of weeks before the larger RWRAC meeting towards the end of the month, which is when, Jeanette? I don't have that in front of me.
Our RAC meeting is scheduled for March 26th.
Okay, so timeframes are a bit short there, but I am open for us to doing another look if there's additional information for us to look at.
You know, and it might be okay to just take that to the full REC committee as the next step.
Yeah, in the end, if it needs to go there because there's not time for us to meet, that's also, I would agree. Okay. Yeah, we saw a draft workbook in our last RWRAC before we reviewed it too, so we can do it the same.
I'm comfortable with that as well, if that's what needs on.
So let me ask this, Art. So this 10-year look ahead that we're being presented, is that equally being presented to county administration? You mentioned some of those names like Jan Lesher, Carmine, just so that they're also aware of those broader implications. It's not just our committee that's seeing this information?
I mean, it would be conversations with Deputy County Administrator DeBonis and Administrator Lesher, along with Jackson and myself, to make sure they're comfortable deviating momentarily from the 15-year amortization policy. But beyond
Because of-
that,
Yeah,
because of the impact it has on the rates, right? If they
Yeah.
want to stay within 15 and they don't have a problem going back before the board, well, then we can go back to
Okay.
15 years and increase the rates, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that they're gonna have a problem, but I mean that like wholeheartedly. That's not conjecture. I don't know.
that's
I
okay.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have a feeling one way or the other. So
Okay.
I think that the plan as presented is prudent. Jackson and I have, and the work Michelle has already done a lot of part of the work, right? It's just me and Jackson getting in front of them to have a full, robust conversation about the desire to increase rates.
Yeah.
So soon after we just did it last year.
Yeah, and the various levers and the trade-offs. I appreciate that, and I thank you for that, because the weight of this, I think it's better that some of the other county departments, Board of Supervisors, not just through us, the financial subcommittee. I think it's important for those to be good, transparent, trade-off conversations that happen through some of the one-on-one conversations that you guys are doing. Rather than filtering it all through us. I think that's great. So with that, we do have the financial subcommittee meeting schedule as our next agenda item. If nobody has any objections, I'll just move on to that. What is our pleasure on that? Do we want to tentatively set another meeting date? Have Jeanette do a doodle poll before our next RWRAC meeting? We can cancel it if there's nothing to review, but certainly come back and pre-look at anything that might come before the RWRAC.
The only potential dates we would have would be next week.
Oof.
And it really, it depends on Art and Jackson's availability, because the RAC meeting is in
The
2 weeks.
26th. It's the
The 26th.
26th. Okay.
So basically
right.
the week
Month
of,
is-
the week of the 16th is really the best option. I think my question is, Art and Michelle, is there any material that would be available to the financial subcommittee to discuss prior to the RAC meeting on the 26th?
The only thing I can think of, Jeanette, would be if county admin says we are completely adverse to moving to that longer amortization period for this project.
Mhm.
At which point I'm gonna come back and say, okay, well then in that particular case, we're going back to the board for rate increases. Because we're devoid of options at that point.
So I guess, so basically, there isn't any new information prior to the RAC meeting available to the financial subcommittee to discuss.
It's either this workbook or the other one I presented, so no.
Okay, so Kirsten, in that regard, then I would say, what about having the financial subcommittee the week of April 6th after the RAC meeting to delve a little bit deeper into whatever is discussed there?
I think that would be fine unless there's other objections. I see Matt's hand up, and Eric, I don't know if you have thoughts on this.
Yeah, I just will second that idea. I think we just plan to get an update at the March RAC meeting, and then have a schedule now early April financial subcommittee meeting to move the financial plan forward, assuming things are in a posture to do that at that point.
Okay,
Which, Jeanette, maybe we could even find a date like the week of the 30th, if you wanted to move it earlier, or.
I need to make sure with Art and Jackson first on their availability.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
But
let
either
me
of those 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
Go
That
ahead and
sounds
look for
wonderful.
dates.
So Jackson
Eric-
and Art, I will follow up with the two of you after the meeting for your availability for those 2 weeks. And then from there, we will have some dates for a doodle poll. Sound good, everyone?
Yep.
sounds
And then
good.
Eric, you had your hand up at some point. Did you have anything to jump in on?
I think that Jackson and Art are gonna find out. It's an either or. We either do this way or we do it that way. And that's gonna be presented at the RAC meeting, which at that point in time, we'll have a full committee to discuss it. I'm fine with that.
And then some of the other things like Jaime's, what are we calling it? Summary memo. Would that come to the larger RAC? Would that come to us for our next financial subcommittee meeting?
I
What
mean,
do
do
we
you want to
think?
do a draft to the
Sure.
subcommittee first or just send it to the full committee?
Can send it to the subcommittee and then you can forward from there or copy and include it in the next meeting. Would that work?
You could provide it to us, but I don't think we can comment on it outside of our
Right.
meeting. So,
So it's, if you want to do a draft to the subcommittee, then it would need to be discussed at the next subcommittee meeting. And then they would approve it to go to the full committee. Is that how you want to do it? Or do you just want to do the memo to the members of
I'll-
RAC?
I'll do the memo and route it to the RAC and you can all talk about it there.
Okay, sounds
I
good.
think that's fine because it's just outlining the paradigm of what's on this, and it will just answer a lot of and squash a lot of those questions that we've brought up. It'll just paint the paradigm. Matt.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have a suggestion for Jaime that he title his memo the Southern Wastewater Optimization Master Plan. We'll call it SWAMP.
Oh, no.
I veto.
You veto that. Well, it's occurred to me that the SRRRF might be the surf plant, so you're going to surf in the swamp. No, I'm kidding. But okay, so with that, future agenda items, and we can otherwise hopefully wrap up here by the top of the hour. It sounds like future agenda items will be to discuss any information that Art jointly gets and which one of these rate increase version versus not rate increase version do we really need to be considering for the rate workbook. And then may I put in a small plug sooner or later to get my little answer on how we depreciate plants. I would love to have that answer as well. I don't know if that needs to be on an agenda item, but if someone can fill me in on that. Any other?
Andy, can you answer that right now or do you want to get back?
Let's get back to him.
That's fine.
We'll get back to you.
Okay. Any other agenda items that anyone else can think of? I think it really is just whatever the reality of the rate workbook is that is going forward. Okay. With that, I'll move to call to the audience if there's any audience members.
I would just request that Jaime and Art each stay on just for a quick minute right after I have something to share with both of you. A separate topic, but Art, I'll tell you what it is when I stay on if you got one more minute, and then Jaime, you and I can talk after that. Thanks.
Okay. Call to the audience. Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Everyone have a great rest of your day, and we're adjourned.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Good job.
Thank you all.